My name is Ginger Teague, and I serve as the Senior Director of Instruction at Project Lead the Way, where I lead a team that develops the curricular and professional development resources for PLTW Launch, which is our elementary program. I'm grateful for the opportunity to facilitate this webinar today and moderate our panel. As we begin, please introduce yourselves in chat and let us know where you're joining us from. We believe that all students beginning at a young age need access to real-world applied learning experiences that empower them to gain the skills they need to thrive in college, careers, and beyond. The STEM Ally webinar series is brought to you by a partnership between Project Lead the Way and EducationWeek. At Project Lead the Way, we believe learning by doing prepares students for a STEM-driven world. Our project-based curriculum, which is coupled with best-in-class professional development and grants for curriculum adoption, supports teachers in creating an environment to make every student in every grade STEM successful. As a national nonprofit organization, Project Lead the Way is proud to reach 2.5 million students in elementary, middle, and high schools in all 50 states. Whether it's kindergartners learning coding or high schoolers preparing for a biomedical, computer science, or engineering future, Project Lead the Way is the STEM ally that every teacher deserves. You can learn more about us at pltw.org. If you're interested in earning CEUs for this webinar, EducationWeek is providing them to all participants. Certificates of completion are available to all registered live attendants who attend 53 minutes or more of this webinar. Your certificate will be emailed to you, and that PDF certificate verifies 1 hour of professional development credit. As with all PD hours that are delivered, EdWeb recommends that each educator verify ahead of the webinar broadcast that the content will qualify for PD in your school district, county, or state with your supervisor, human resources personnel, or a principal or superintendent's office. In the work that we do at PLTW, there's a sense of wonder, of discovery, and of embracing fun and excitement in STEM. This webinar explores the intersection between joy and STEM. As we know, as educators in STEM fields are often perceived as serious and challenging. But we also know that STEM is brimming with opportunities for creativity, curiosity, and joy. In this webinar, we're going to dive into how to infuse enthusiasm and delight into the world of STEM education. During the webinar, we'll hear from our inspiring panelists that come from diverse STEM backgrounds. They're going to share their personal stories of bringing joy and fun into their own learning environments. We'll explore practical strategies, innovative teaching approaches, hands-on activities, interactive experiments, and engaging products that cultivate a love for STEM subjects. So before we introduce our amazing panel, we're going to dive into content. I want to share a few tips on how to maximize your webinar experience. First, join the conversation. Share your stories and experiences and ask questions by engaging with the other participants and our panelists. Our panelists and PLTW team members are available to answer questions during the webinar. So if you have a question, please submit it through Q&A and not the group chat. Now's a good time to review some of the technical aspects of today's presentation. Please check the audio settings on your computer as well as your speaker volumes if you're having any audio trouble. If you're still having issues, please see our detailed audio troubleshooting file. It's available in the resource list under the Q&A window. If the console freezes or you hear music after the presentation has begun, please refresh your browser. There are also some other icons that open additional feature panels in our webinar console. You can read about today's speakers in the speaker bio window. You You can click the resources list to download a copy of today's slides and other resources, or join the group chat. Follow the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter, which I should say X, using the hashtag EWWebinar. So thank you again for joining us, and let's jump into today's content and meet the panelists. So our panelists are going to join us now, and I want to thank them for being here today to share their stories. I'm going to ask that they briefly introduce themselves and answer the following questions during their introduction. Here's my question. How do joy and play make an impact in K-12 education in general and in the learning environments that you work in specifically? And I'm going to pass the question off to Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie McGarry, and I am a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, and a registered play therapy supervisor, and the owner of Tots and Teachers Counseling and Consultation. I am also the director of clinical programming with our communities and schools of the Dallas region. Play and children, as you know, it's a natural combination. Play is the natural language of children, and it's often how they invite us into their own world. It helps us to see, what they enjoy, and it produces those feelings which are much needed in a school setting, because a school setting can bring with it a lot of different stressors at any grade level. Now, unfortunately, when things get tough in schools, the one thing that we take away first is the fun thing. We take away the play, we take away the joy, because we need to get really serious. But in my role, I get to support therapists who use strength-based approaches to assist schools and assist students, bringing play back into the environment to instill hope and help them to build different skills. Anna?
Thank you, Stephanie, and hello, everybody. My name is Anna Udina, and I'm a Senior Director of Marketing Initiatives at the Toy Association. So the Toy Association is the leader of the toy industry, so play is naturally at the heart of everything that we choose. So a little bit about my role. I lead the Genius of Play initiative, which is all about promoting the benefits of play, so bringing more play to kids' lives at home and in the classroom. We also provide a lot of play-based resources for parents, caregivers, as well as educators. In addition to the Genius of Play, I also oversee the Toy Association's STEAM Toy Accreditation Program. So this is where play and STEAM come all together. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But for now, I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of toys and play as they relate to STEAM. So at the Toy Association, we have done a lot of research to define what exactly is the role of play and toys. So a lot of us know that they are effective for helping kids learn, but what exactly makes them so effective? So I'm not gonna go into all 10 benefits. We're gonna put a link in the chat and you can access this slide. But number one, I think is really important. Toys get kids involved and passionate about STEAM subjects. And that just leads the way to a joyful and healthy relationship with these disciplines. So basically, we're talking about engaged learners, about getting kids to want to learn. And this is really key, because when you're open to learning, you want to learn, you want to understand, discover, you are going to be successful. So that is really important. Another thing that's really important in play, I think, is trial and error. And unlike on a test, in a lot of environments in school where there may be only one right answer, and if you don't get it right, it may be considered a failure or it may be perceived as such. In play, it's always a safe environment. It's risk-free. You can make as many errors as you like. It never equates failure. And that is truly important to STEAM, because if you think about any major discovery, it has been made with a lot of trial and error. You have to fail at least 1,000 times before you get to the right solution to a problem. So it's really important to instill that sense of, hey, you can fail, that's okay, you can make errors. And finally, toys are hands-on, and so is STEAM. It's really hard, probably impossible to learn STEAM just by listening or reading. You gotta experience it with your hands on by doing. And this is where toys come into play and they make it relevant. So a lot of concepts in science, technology, mathematics, definitely, they can seem complex, intimidating, and far removed from the everyday lives that students are experiencing. But toys can make them accessible. They can bring them back down to earth, and they can make them relevant to things that students are experiencing every day. So there you go. A lot of magic packed into toys and play. We'll try to unpack as much of it as possible, but right now, I'd like to pass it on to Audra.
Thank you so much, Anna. So hi, my name is Audra Selkowitz, and I am coming to you from the VEX classroom. I am currently a senior education developer here at VEX Robotics. Prior to joining the team at VEX in the fall of 2020, after finishing my 17+ year career as an early childhood, early elementary, kindergarten classroom teacher from my living room, I moved into a role here with VEX to be able to take kind of what I always did in the classroom and bring it into what they were starting to develop and do with educational robotics across the continuum from pre-K all the way up through high school. So my background is in early childhood. I taught kindergarten for a really long time. I was fortunate enough to work in programs and places where wonder and joy and curiosity could be a big part of the curriculum. I had a lot of autonomy in those places to do emerging curriculum and project-based learning, and situations where we knew what the standards were that we needed students to reach, but I had the freedom to be able to get to know my students, develop some relationships, play with them. As you mentioned, that's super important, and be able to see what were the things that sparked their joy, what were the things that brought curiosity and interest, and then how could we use that in order to shape curriculum around it. And that is part of what I have tried really hard to bring to my work at VEX, is to be able to say, you know, we've got educational robotics. That's super motivating in and of itself, right? Kids love engaging with the robots. So how can we use this as a really powerful STEM tool to give teachers another language for play, another language for expression in your classroom, another way to provoke wonder and curiosity and creativity, and to keep joy present in everything that you're doing. So here you can see I've got some stuff set up so that I can show you some hands-on things we can do with robots for even our youngest learners. But yeah, that is basically my role here. Is I get to play with robots and find ways to bring play-based learning experiences with STEM and educational robotics to students all over the world. And it's a fantastic way to spend the day, and a great way to bring in what I've done, and as a classroom teacher, administrator, and wearer of many hats in several different schools and programs, into what we're doing here.
Thank you again to each of our panelists for being here and sharing your knowledge and expertise with this audience. As we begin diving into additional questions, I want to let you know we structured the webinar where we'll have 3 questions, and our panelists will take turns answering the questions. So our first question is, what are some ways that educators can integrate joy in their STEM teaching? So we're going to ask them to give some specific ideas and examples, and I'm actually going to start by answering. So rather than telling students about phenomena, at Project Lead the Way, we believe it's important for them to actively engage in activities, projects, and problems that allow them to uncover ideas and build understanding along the way. For example, students may collaborate in learning centers where they're investigating different ways that energy could be transferred. Or you may find students exploring the idea of structure and function as they work to build the tallest standing tower that can hold an object at the top. Throughout these kinds of learning experiences, students communicate their ideas. They wonder about what is happening, ask good questions, and explore possibilities as they try out their ideas. When students are immersed in making sense of the world around them, it's easy to observe visible joy on their faces and through their actions upon discovering a new idea or finding a solution to a big challenge. This kind of learning probably feels more like play and actually leads to many joyful aha moments. Students learn from their mistakes and recognize mistake does not mean failure, like Anna spoke about earlier. This approach values the process that leads to finding a solution and not just a perfect solution to the problem. Stephanie, I'm going to give you a chance to answer this question.
Thank you, Ginger. So when you're teaching a STEM lesson, coming from a mental health perspective, it's really important to know when teaching anything that a student's stress response system has been activated. And that's not a bad thing. Our stress response systems right now are currently activated because we're paying attention, we're listening, and we're wanting to learn something new. But it's important that we know that because that cortisol, that stress hormone, starts to flow, right? And we want just the right amount of that. If we didn't have any, our students would be asleep. If we had too much, then they wouldn't be able to experience the joy we want them to experience. So it's super important to know that their stress response system is activated. But we want to know that we really don't always know what our students' stress baseline is when they come into our classrooms or when they're starting a lesson. We don't know what happened 30 minutes before. So when you start an activity with something that calms that stress response system, so a mindful activity or something that can allow the nervous system to be in a good space to take on new information. Now, this could look like starting the lesson with a fun, mindful breath, like balloon breathing. I worked with a classroom of first graders, and they used to do a really cool dragon breath, or even a STEM-themed breath, like a rocket ship or anything connected to the upcoming lesson. This could also include students thinking about things they're grateful for when it comes to science, technology, engineering, or math. So really focusing before the lesson even starts, what are we grateful for when it comes to those specific areas? The goal is not to relax, it's to make room again in that nervous system for more fun to happen, for joy to be felt. Joy is a very vulnerable emotion, and you have to feel safe in order to experience it. Now, this can also be integrated throughout the lesson. STEM lessons, like Anna said, are pretty hands-on, and we want to normalize those mistakes. I was working with a kindergarten class, and they named what they would call their mistakes proactively. So we already know we're going to make mistakes. That's what's going to happen. What do we want to call them when we make them? So they call them whoopsies. So anytime something happened, they would say, whoopsie, and the whole class would just bust out laughing. And then they dive into what can we do differently? How can we shake things up? And just like you started the STEM lesson with a mindful moment or a moment of gratitude, you want to make sure you end with one too, giving students space to share their favorite part of the lesson. Asking questions like, what made you smile today? What brought you joy today? And how are you planning to carry that joy throughout the day? Because we don't know, just like we don't know what they came in, what their stress baseline was, we also don't know what they're going into after our lesson. So we want to make sure that we're putting them back in that safe space to end with a mindful breath to prepare them for whatever may be coming up next. So that's how I think we can kind of sandwich some of those things in through a lesson. Anna?
All right, so I'm going to continue sharing resources with the audience. And since we're talking about integrating joy and excitement, I wanted to share our STEAM playbook, which is all about play-based learning. And we developed the STEAM playbook with the Genius of Play. We also partnered with child development and education experts to help us develop those activities. So what it is basically a collection of play-based activities and games. We have them for every letter in each of the 4 core categories: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But what about the arts? It's called STEAM Playbook for a reason. At the Toy Association, we actually prefer to use STEAM versus STEM to underscore the importance of the arts as the expression of creativity, which leads to innovation. So every activity in the STEAM playbook incorporates a strong art component in addition to focusing on science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. So if you're looking to integrate the arts, and that is often a great way to get kids excited, because all kids love usually creative activities. They seem a lot less intimidating than learning mathematics, for instance. There is definitely a great pathway to that through the activities in the playbook. We wanted to appeal to a wide range of different ages and grades. So for each activity includes modifications. If you're working with younger kids, there are ways to make it simpler. If you're working with older kids, there are also ways to make it more complex, so it is still age appropriate. We're going to share a link to the playbook in the chat, but you can also download it from our website, thegeniusofplay.org. And just to give you a flavor of some of the activities, specific activities that you can find in the playbook, one of my favorite is called Coders and Robots. And it's just a super fun game that you can play with a large group of kids, so it's perfect for a classroom environment. It also teaches kids the foundations of coding, which sounds like such a serious subject, but it does not require any computers or any screen time. So you can still accomplish those learning goals without having kids in front of the computers. And what I love about it is that kids sit a lot. They already spend a lot of time in front of a screen and often not enough time being active. So Coders and Robots actually is a great way to get them to use their bodies, to be physically active, get them up and running around, which is always an added bonus for me. So that's just one example. We also have Rainbow Milk, which combines science and visual art. So your students will be creating beautiful futuristic artwork that you can use to decorate your classroom. There are activities like Impact Craters, which explore astronomy and lunar geography, and also combine a huge creative and visual arts component in them. So I'm going to turn it over to Audra now, but I hope that you definitely check out the playbook. It's a great resource if you're looking to integrate STEAM and excitement and play and learning all in one. So Audra.
Thank you, Anna. So one of the things that I have always found about STEM learning and STEM teaching, and really teaching of so many things in my own classroom experience, is that, but particularly with STEM, there is so much room for wonder and curiosity and creativity and joy and playfulness in what we're doing, particularly when we're bringing hands-on learning experiences to our students through STEM. And one of the things that I found for myself as I started to incorporate more STEM learning was that I was not someone with a computer science background, right? I had an education background. I came to all of this through my work with VEX, but when I started incorporating this into my classroom, there was some fear around, do I know enough about this to be able to teach coding to kindergarten, right? How am I going to do this? So one of the things that I found for myself that helped me to spark joy in what I was doing was to model that joy and that joyful learning process. So as Stephanie mentioned, right, naming your mistakes. When we are coding our robots to do anything, there's going to be bugs in our code, right? And bugs, particularly for our youngest children, the idea that there is a bug in the code and that is what it's actually called is hilarious and fascinating. So finding a bug became really motivating for students. And in the students that I've gotten to work with in my time at VEX, I've seen children who went from having zero experience with any kind of coding or robotics to who are a little bit nervous to get started, to then kind of really curious about, well, what else can my robot do? And being excited to share what they got their robot to do, to getting to the point where they didn't want to leave class at the end of their STEM period because they just needed to try one more thing. But Miss Audra, I just need one more thing. And that sort of joy and excitement and motivation is really what kind of keeps us going. And something else that I think has always sort of been in the back of my mind here is that I taught with a lot of integrated curriculum. And as teachers, particularly right now, I mean, always, but especially now, right? No one needs one more thing to do. And if we view STEM as just that one more thing that I have to add on to my already overfull plate, it can seem a bit daunting and a bit overwhelming. But if we see STEM as just a vehicle to be able to teach other things that we're doing, it opens up the doors in a really impactful and powerful way. So now we can use robotics as a tool to help students practice spelling words or sight words, to put letters all over the field and have them code their robot to different letters, or put numbers on it and have them code their robot to different sums, or use the robot on a number line. So we can do a lot of different activities that build in some of the computer science learning that we want to do, right? We're doing the same sequencing and decomposition that we do in a variety of other subjects. Now we're just doing it with a robot. So the sequencing puzzles that I used to drag out every year in kindergarten and do cartwheels to make exciting, I can now do that same sequencing and decomposition and spatial reasoning and fine motor skills and all of those great things that I know as a teacher I'm baking into this experience. And my students just feel like they're telling stories with their robot, or they're coding their robot to go trick-or-treating or trying to scare away a wolf. So being able to kind of open your eyes to seeing STEM as just a tool for teaching and for modeling the joyful learning process that, oh my gosh, we found a bug, what are we gonna do? And bringing that joy to your students so that they see you modeling good, joyful problem solving, that then encourages them to engage in joyful problem solving, which sets the stage for them to be good critical thinkers moving forward and to see learning as a process, not just something where we're trying to get to this end result. And the last thing that I'll include here is to, when we're teaching, particularly with STEM, having projects that are maybe a little bit open-ended, where there is more than one way to solve the challenge, can be really powerful for students. So not only does it open the door for them to be able to express their creativity in different and exciting ways, but it gives you, the teacher, a way to have all of your students working on the same project, right? So it takes the burden off of you. But now, well, maybe this group is just doing some sequencing things. This group is trying to use the eye sensor and they're driving until their robot detects an object. Or this group is doing something a little bit different. So this way, everybody can do the challenge in the way that best meets their needs. So this way, all of our students are in that kind of safe space. They're all within that good zone of proximal development that we want them to be in to be able to maximize their learning. And everybody's just having a good time and having fun with their robots. So in their minds, they're playing, and then I get to go back and check off all of these other good learning skills and academic standards that I know that I've been doing. Now I will pass it back over to Ginger for our next question.
Thank you. I will say, wow, thanks everyone for sharing these exciting ideas. And in fact, we're going to move on to a question. We're going to ask them to share even more ideas. I hope that some of you are getting really excited about things you can take back to your classrooms. So our next question is, we want to ask you to share some strategies that can be replicated in STEM teaching and learning environments. And what I want to share with you today is an approach that I first experienced in an NSTA web seminar, and then our PLTW launch team took that simple idea and expanded it a little bit to be able to use it in our elementary content. In the resources, you'll find an Observe, Wonder, Connect resource. There's a chart, and there's also some directions for you as a teacher how you could use this, but I'll kind of talk us through that first. But this is a great way to engage students in a learning experience that has a STEM theme. So with this approach, it starts by introducing a phenomena or concepts by starting with an observation. Students can observe something that's a physical observation, view a video, explore images that are related to the phenomena. For example, this could be a video of an airplane taking off and flying for a unit on the science of flight. And after the observation, students would record what they saw, what they heard or felt in the observation. You do that in the observe, that column on the chart. Sorry about that. But then the next step is very important, and that is to allow students time to wonder about their observations. Like, how does this work? I wonder if the temperature impacts takeoff or flight. How does a heavy plane stay in the air? Or I wonder what has to happen for the plane to be able to land. Students then record these questions or wonderings in the wonder column on the chart. The connect column actually comes later, after you've engaged students in activities, projects, or problems that help them build knowledge and skills and make connections as they're trying to make sense of this phenomenon. So starting a unit with observation is a great way to spark curiosity and really get students thinking. As students engage in activities, they have a purpose. They are trying to answer their own questions that they have just recorded. The learning experiences help them make the connections. It allows them to move from wonderings to actually record what they discovered, what they made sense of. These connections can then be applied to complete projects or solve open-ended problems. This is a simple tool, but it really offers a powerful approach for engaging students in learning that's both fun and meaningful. So I'm going to pass it on to Stephanie.
Thank you, Ginger. And yours just kind of connects a little bit with my idea. And, you know, during a STEM lesson, one skill that our students really need is to pay attention, right? We want them to be able to pay attention, and we want them to pay attention on purpose, like the observation you were talking about. And that is a simple definition of mindfulness, paying attention on purpose. But like any other skill, it has to be taught. It has to be exercised, and there's many different ways to do that. One way that I really enjoy is called naming that sound. So it's a game where you challenge students wherever they are. It's better when you're out in nature and you can hear other things. And I give them a big number, like 5 or 6 or 7. And I tell them, name me 7 things you can hear. Now you want to pick that high number because you want them to listen deeply. You don't want them to just be surface. You want them to start listening really deeply. And then after the activity is done, you can then ask them questions about what is it that you heard? What did you hear? And another question that connects is, what did you have to block out in order for you to hear that one specific thing? So then you start to get them thinking about not only hearing, but focusing. How do I have to block out some things to hear other things? So even if I practice that right now and I was paying attention to what I hear, my office is by a highway. I hear cars going by, my neighbor's kind of loud, so I kind of hear them talking. And so I have to block out all those things to focus right here on what it is that we're doing. And another activity that I think is really cool is through Mindful Schools. It's an amazing program, and Catherine will drop the link to their mindful eating exercise. I love it because I love to eat. And so do children love to eat. And so when you engage in this activity with students, they're using all their senses. You allow them to have a snack, either something they bring or something you bring, making sure that you are staying abreast of any allergies of that nature. And you start with looking at the snack. Now that's hard in itself. That takes some impulse control for some kiddos, like the marshmallow test. You just start with your eyes. What do you see? What do you see about the snack? What does it tell you? What are you noticing? And then you go down to, what do you smell? So then you have them smell. Does it smell like what it looks like? Trying to put those two things together. And then you move to touching it. What does it feel like? Is it hard? Is it sticky? Is it soft? Does it feel like you thought it would feel? Then you'll go to sound. What does the snack sound like? Is it ruffly? Is there paper? And then my favorite part is tasting it, right? And then you encourage them to chew slowly. What does it taste like? Does it taste how you thought? We thought we smelled this certain ingredient. Do we taste that certain ingredient? Now, in that activity, it can also be translated into an actual STEM lesson where you can start asking kids, what do they see? What do they notice using their senses? What do you see? What do you feel? Even after we make a whoopsie or we make a mistake or there's a bug in the system, what do we see? What do we hear? What do we notice? Having them to use those senses and really building that focus and that impulse control. So coupling those mindful activities with another mindful breathing activity can help students learn how to pay close attention to what they're doing while also staying regulated. Remember, we want to think about our age and stage development. This is still early elementary, so we want to make sure we're aware of that. Taking breaks is helpful when they're feeling overwhelmed, and a good belly breath is always good for taking just a small breath in between an activity. So that's just one that I thought, two really cool activities, naming the sound and mindful eating, that can then translate into whatever activity is coming up next. Anna?
Thank you, Stephanie. I wanted to dive into a little bit more of how toys can be utilized to encourage STEAM learning. But first of all, not all toys are created equal, and that is especially true when it comes to STEAM toys, because unlike just any toy, which is mostly about fun and engaging, STEAM toys are educational toys, first and foremost, and they are supposed to help kids learn specific age-appropriate concepts, reach specific age-appropriate learning goals. So the Toy Association actually developed the STEAM Toy Assessment Framework, which step-by-step defines what are the criteria that a toy must have in order to qualify as STEAM toy. And a big part of the framework is based on curriculum standards, child development principles, and it specifies age by age and discipline by discipline the appropriate learning goals in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, with arts kind of like being the underlying everything, because it's STEAM ultimately for us at the Toy Association. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples of toys that have been STEAM accredited. This is the seal that we award after a rigorous evaluation process that a toy needs to pass through in order to be considered a STEAM accredited toy. So a couple of examples, and then I'll finish by talking about some of the things that we're looking for, the criteria that we evaluate. So the first toy that I wanted to give you as an example today is called Penguin Math Balance. So it is from a company called Batat Education, and this is for 3 and up. So it is really great for young learners, pre-K, kindergarten, kids who are just starting to learn mathematics. This is a math scale toy. It comes with 30 cute critters that they can put on the right or on the left to balance the scale. And of course, they have the numbers assigned to them. So kids will be doing a lot of addition, subtraction, practicing those basic math skills. They also will be exploring concepts like weight and size. My favorite part of this toy, and something that we're looking for when we look at STEAM toys, is the booklet that it comes with. It comes with 3 different playbooks, level 1, 2, and 3. So there are 3 levels of difficulty. And basically those are educational activities and specific learning goals that those activities connect to. So this is all laid out in the supplementary materials. So you don't have to sort of wonder, well, okay, this is a cute toy, this is fun, kids are gonna love it, but how am I going to connect it back with what they are supposed to be learning? So those supplementary materials make it super easy to connect play and all the fun that kids are going to be having with the learning outcomes, even at this very young, pre-K, K level. So the other toy that I wanted to highlight today is very different. This is for kids 9 and up, so it's a much more sophisticated. It's called Traveling to Space Astronomy, and this is from the company called Ingeno, their STEM Discovery series. So this toy combines so many STEM and STEAM disciplines. It comes with materials to build 6 3D models. So kids will be building a rocket ship, an International Space Station, a space robot, and a bunch of other things. So here is your engineering and technology. It comes with a ton of supplementary material, not only easy to follow instructions for how to build the models, but also hands-on experiments. So we talked about the importance of being hands-on and also trial and error, this whole experimentation. This toy makes the best use of that. So there are tons of experiments that kids can do. And there is also information that explains the scientific phenomena that are behind those experiments. There is even a quiz if you would like to test the students' knowledge. And it's a fun quiz, I promise. So So this is an example of how a toy can be educational and guide kids towards age-appropriate, grade-appropriate STEAM learning goals, even at the higher level. So it's not all about toys for kindergarten. Toys can age up and be educational for kids at any age, really. So a couple of things that I wanted to underscore in both of those toys, and those are some of the criteria we're looking for. Interdisciplinary. This is super important because we don't want a math toy or a science toy to be called STEAM if it is not interdisciplinary, if it does not connect the letters in the acronym. There is a reason why it's an acronym. The interdisciplinary nature is part of the magic of STEAM. So we make sure that whatever toys get accredited connect math and science, or engineering and mathematics, or technology and science. The more letters, the better. We require at least 2. So that's one of our requirements. Also, easy to use. It sounds simple, and it should be, but it's not always like that. So toys need to be easy for kids enough to figure out on their own with some adult supervision, but not too much. They should not be complicated. They should not be frustrated. And that is very important when it comes to more complex toys. Like STEAM toys can be a little bit complex, especially for older kids. So accreditation, we make sure that they're still easy to use at the appropriate age level. And finally, I want to go back to the importance of fun and engaging. Believe it or not, we actually test for that. Part of the accreditation, the evaluation process, we have kids play with the toys, and they're being observed by trained child development experts. And why should we do that? Well, because we want to make sure that in addition to all the learning, all the science and math that kids are going to learn, the toy remains a toy, a good toy, a toy that's going to be engaging, fun, that is going to get kids really interested and excited. So at the end of the day, as one of the other presenters mentioned, they're not, I think, Audra, that was you, they're not even going to know that they're learning because they're having so much fun. So those are just 2 examples. We have over 200 toys accredited today, and we continue to evaluate and accredit toys every single day. So if you're interested in checking them out, we have them all on the geniusofplay.org/STEAM. We're going to put a link in the chat. And we also have a partnership with Amazon. So there is a STEAM accredited toys storefront on Amazon where you can find the majority of those products. So that's it for now. I'm going to turn it over to Audra.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Anna. So I thought it would be fun, since it is October, to get a little seasonal and to share an actual STEM lesson using VEX 123, which is the little robot that I've got set up here. You may want to adjust your viewing so this way you can see my part of the screen full size, just to be able to see the demonstration in as much detail as you can. So basically, the idea behind this activity is that we're going to take our robots trick-or-treating, because who doesn't love all of the trick-or-treating fun that happens at Halloween, right? As a kindergarten teacher, I can tell you this lesson was inspired by a desire to take back my Halloween afternoons to be able to do something fun and educational and joyful that leaned into the joy of Halloween without trying to fight it and force my kids to do things that we were all just going to get frustrated trying to do. So this activity is very simple. I'm going to just explain it here. It's also printable, and there'll be a link to that little printable Google Doc. So this right here is my little VEX 123 robot, and it is called 123 because there are 3 ways to code the robot. You can code it using the touch buttons on the top for very youngest learners. You can code it using the coder and coder cards. So we get 2 different ways to code your robot that are completely screen-free and tangible coding. And then the third way is also to use a screen-based VEX code, block-based VEX code 123 to be able to code the robot. So this same activity can be done with children from pre-K or kindergarten all the way up through 2nd, 3rd grade to keep it exciting for everybody. So the first thing that we do is we decorate our robot, and we dress our robot up in a Halloween costume. So each robot comes with a little art ring. So you can use classroom art supplies. I've put this one together with some pipe cleaners and googly eyes, because as we know with young children, nothing sparks joy like googly eyes. You can use just plain paper. I've got a little octopus drawn here. We've got a combination of things to make a spider. But basically the goal of the activity is that we're going to dress up our robot for Halloween, and we are going to code the robot to go trick-or-treating at different houses. So the 3 things you need to have in your project are: you have to drive your robot to the house. It has to play a sound in order to, say trick or treat, ring the doorbell. And then it has to have a reaction to getting that candy or whatever they got from that house. So with those 3 goals in mind, you can see again how there's a number of different ways to solve that challenge, right? So when I start up my robot, if I have very young students, we can have them just use the touch buttons on the top of the robot to count how many spaces they need to go to get from here to there. So we can count together again, 1, 2, 3 spaces. How many button presses is that going to take? And one of the things about all of VEX robotics and all of these activities is that they're designed to be done by groups of students. So students are going to work with a partner to complete this activity. So now when we drive our robot to the house, we'll see it go 1, 2, 3. Now we're ready to add a sound, right? So we can continue to build these different reactions and things into our project, but our students have to work together to figure it out. Maybe they take a different path. Maybe they're starting over here. We can set up as many or as few houses as we want to make this as complicated or as simple as we want. So it can start very, very simply by just using the touch buttons, but then we can also level up our coding. There are 50 different coder cards that we can use, and you can do things like build a trick-or-treating algorithm with your students. So for older students, now we can say, okay, we need to do those 3 things, right? But we want an algorithm, because what do? You don't just go to one house, right? You go to one house, you get the candy, you turn around and you run to the next one. So how can we code our robot in order to do that? So we build a project that has the robot drive until it senses an object, ring the doorbell, act happy, turn right, and go to the next house. So now it's acting happy, it'll play a little sound, it'll turn right, it'll go to the next place. And now we're building in all of the components of an algorithm into this project. And our students are just having fun decorating their robot, coding it to go trick-or-treating. They're working through some persistence and problem solving. If their code doesn't work exactly the way they want it to, right? They're able to work that out with their partners. There's collaboration, there's creativity. They get to choose. I've had students put a little, after they ring the doorbell, they get an act sad. And I said, well, why? Why is your robot sad? They said, well, that house gave me an apple and I really wanted some candy. So we get some creativity and some storytelling involved in here also. And there's so many different ways that we can extend that for students. And the beauty of this is that, again, they will feel like they're playing. I know all of the great learning that we're doing. And because my students are doing this together, I can also incorporate some good social emotional learning into these experiences, because particularly on days like Halloween, right, our feelings can be very big and they can be in a variety of different directions. So as somebody who worked a long time with very young children in kindergarten and early childhood and early elementary, social emotional learning is near and dear to my heart. So trying to find ways to incorporate that into what we're doing with STEM is also really important. So helping students to work out their conversations with their friend when somebody wants to act happy and somebody wants to glow blue and play the honking sound, right? How do we navigate that? How do we navigate those disagreements? How can we test things and compromise? So there's a ton of really awesome and wonderful things that we can do. This is just one example that I thought was fun for this time of year and a great way to sort of showcase the variety of options that you have. Because you can do this activity with your kindergartners, with your second graders, with your third graders, and have them coding in VEX code 1, 2, 3 and building, all kinds of exciting projects. So there is our fun little trick-or-treating robots for today, and I will pass it back to Ginger.
Thank you each for sharing these ideas. I don't know about you all, but I'm having to resist picking up my phone and getting on and ordering a lot of these things. So I hope you'll have plenty to do after this webinar. We are getting close to the end of our time together. But before we wrap up, I do have one more question for our panelists, and it's a two-parter. One, what do you see as the ideal future for integrating joy in STEM education? How might joy continue to evolve and shape the learning landscape? And what resources do you recommend for supporting educators who want to integrate joy in their STEM teaching and learning environments? Well, I believe that the ideal future for integrating joy in STEM education can come through engaging students in learning that is project or problem based. We've all said that in some way today, I believe. We also believe it should be situated in the real world. In the activity, project, problem based, or what we call APB instructional approach at Project Lead the Way, we use this in all of our curricula. In this, we pose problems that are relevant to students and really give them a purpose for building knowledge and skills. Another result of this approach and a key to the future is that as students are learning those concepts, making sense of the world around them, they're also developing transportable skills that will actually follow them through school and into their future careers. They're building problem solving, critical and creative thinking, collaboration, communication, and ethical reasoning and mindset. For resources, I will encourage you to explore the PLTW website and select professional development. We have a new catalog of offerings called Professional Development Suite. These are designed to provide ongoing learning for educators. And of course, I would encourage you to check out PLTW Launch on our website and see how this program can bring joyful STEM learning to your students. Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. I think the ideal future for STEM looks like, and I think Audra, you spoke to this, both educators and students feeling a sense of joy. We don't want the educators to be super excited and the students bored, and the students super excited and the teacher frustrated and annoyed. So it looks like that mutual feeling of joy. There's this misconception that happiness and joy are the same thing. Happiness is circumstantial. If things are going right, then I'm happy. Joy can be present even when things go wrong. And that happens often when we are doing STEM or STEAM activities. As I was preparing for this panel, I ran across an interesting article that was on LinkedIn, and it was called Nurturing Mental Health in STEM. And it talked about recent studies that have found STEM professionals, adults, to be struggling with their mental health with high levels of anxiety and depression. And it pointed out to the competitiveness of the field with the intense workload and those high expectations from others. And it really started to make me think about the children that we work with and how we can be proactive in helping them build resilience when it comes to them maybe wanting to carry out into STEM related fields, how we can support them in their mental health early on while still encouraging them to participate in STEM related fields. Since we know that learning any new thing, like I talked about earlier, can activate your stress response system, causing us to secrete that cortisol, then we want to balance it out with that happy hormone, that dopamine, which is produced when playing, right? When engaging in any activity that we find enjoyable. Joy can continue to involve the learning landscape by making sure that our students are not only learning about science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, but also making sure that their mental health does not have to suffer because of it. One resource I recommend, it's titled Mindfulness for Teachers, which is by Patricia Jennings, and she teaches educators simple skills to manage stress in the classroom. Another resource I would recommend is the book, The Playful Classroom by Jed Dearberry and Julie P. Jones, which really breaks down how to integrate play into the learning environment for all ages and grades. Both of these books have really practical things that you could start tomorrow if you wanted to start. And we all need practical things that we can do. And that's what I would say. And I'll pass it on to Anna.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I love your answer, by the way, especially when you said joy for all and also the spotlight that you brought on mental health. So for me, the ideal future includes more play in the classroom, but also in our lifestyle in general, and also not just for young kids or for kids, period, but for adults as well. So there is growing evidence that play is not only critical to child development and learning, but that it helps us stay healthy physically, emotionally, cognitively, socially throughout our entire life. So specifically, play has been linked to lower stress levels, greater life satisfaction. So here you go. Better mental health, more joy for all. There are also huge cognitive benefits. So today we talked about STEAM and problem solving. So play has been linked specifically to creative problem solving, ability to look at a problem from a different angle, this mental agility, also known as thinking outside the box and keeping an open mind, which, as we know, is key to STEAM problem solving as well as any problem solving in general. So that is my vision for the future: more play for all, and inside and outside of the classroom, play as part of a healthy lifestyle. In terms of resources, our website is thegeniusofplay.org. I think somebody in the chat was asking, where can I get the playbook? So all the resources that I mentioned today, STEAM accredited toys, the STEAM playbook, and also tons of play-based ideas. We have expert advice. We have a special for teachers section where we have lesson plans that are all leveraging play and cover different subject areas, not just STEAM, but literacy and etc. So all of that is on thegeniusofplay.org. It's all free. You can download, you can use it. You don't have to subscribe. So it is a resource for parents as well as educators. And I know we have educators on the webinar, but if you want to share the website with parents, then that will be huge as well, because there are tons of resources for families and parents. Everything is play-based. So there you go. And for STEAM accredited toys, you can start on our website, you can start on Amazon, or you can simply look for the STEAM accreditation seal, our stamp of approval. If you want to spend money on STEAM toys, we hope that you will spend them on the best of the best that are going to be fun, engaging, but also will guide students towards specific age-appropriate learning goals. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Audra.
Alrighty, thank you, Anna. And I also agree with this idea of joy for all. And one of the things that I think, you know, we all want to be joyful in what we're doing every day, right? We wouldn't be teachers if we didn't find joy in learning and joy in interacting with students. And one of the things that I think sometimes can hold us back, particularly when we're talking about STEM, is this feeling that teachers need to have all of the answers right away for all of the questions that they're ever going to be asked. And freeing us up from that burden, being able to say, you know what, I'm going to dive into this STEM learning activity with the same kind of joyful exuberance and wonder and curiosity that my students are bringing to it, and that I don't have to have all of the answers. I can model, we can figure this out together. Not only can help model that joyful learning, but puts you in relationship with your students, right? It puts us in partnership with them. Anytime we're going to do any kind of STEM learning and we want to learn from mistakes, or we want to be able to highlight mistakes or failures or creativity, this is a very vulnerable space to be in, particularly for some children that may struggle with, oh my gosh, I'm going to make a mistake. What am I going to do? So anything that we can do to help build that relationship, to figure out how to solve the problem together, to be really in partnership and build that trust and safe space with our students, not only helps in a variety of places in our classroom, but also helps with STEM learning, right? It helps them to build that resiliency, the persistence, to be able to articulate not only what they're thinking, but what they're feeling, and feeling comfortable doing that with us. Like, I'm nervous. I've tried this 3 times and I can't get my robot to make the right turn. What do I do? You know, that can be very frustrating for some kids. So we want them to know that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's even okay to feel frustrated, but let's figure it out together. So this way we can lower that frustration and we can stay in that joyful, excited place, because we come back to it all the time. So I wanted to mention that a little bit in terms of the future of STEM learning. In terms of resources, the VEX 1, 2, 3 that I've showed here is the start of the VEX continuum. So this is designed for our youngest students or students who have no computer science experience at all, whatever their age. You can imagine trying to teach computer science with this little robot that has multiple sensors. It can do a ton of stuff. It's a little bit easier, smaller footprint to start with than some of the larger scale building projects. So as we move up through the VEX continuum, students can stay within this one space, in this one ecosystem, and grow their STEM learning. So from VEX 1, 2, 3, if we go sort of chronologically, we then move up into VEX Go and VEX IQ, which is designed for kind of later elementary, middle school, where students will start building and engineering and coding. So now they've got a plastic kit of pieces that they can build robots, but they can also build a number of different non-powered or non-codable things. So again, it takes some of that fear away from teachers who are just starting to get involved with this. And then we move into VEX IQ and VEX EXP and V5, which takes us through the middle school, high school realm of things, where now by EXP and V5, now we're getting into building metal robots. So now we're leveling up the building skills with students. The capabilities of the robots are stronger. So if students have started, you can imagine if they start with something like this and then grow from there, by the time they get to high school, they're able to do things like build these huge robots for competitions or work with the work cell towards a CTE end of school. So by the time students get up towards that upper end of the continuum from starting here, first of all, they've been working within the same coding platform and ecosystem the whole way, so they never have to relearn anything there. So they're really able to just scaffold and build on what they've been doing. And those same sort of collaborative activities that we talked about, scaffold and grow throughout as well. And one thing that I will mention from the IQ and V5 lens of things is also the competition side of things. Now I've been to my first 2 VEX Robotics World Championship events, which are held in Dallas every year, which have teams come from literally all over the world, bringing their robots to compete in a collaborative game in order to try to find a winner. And one of the most amazing things to me about that whole experience is that there is nowhere I have ever in my life, as hard as I have worked, seen that much joyful learning in one place. When by the time you get to the finals of each division, there is a huge dome stadium that feels like a rock concert. There are only 8 teams that are competing for the finals, but that entire stadium is screaming and excited. And the thing that struck me, as I mentioned, that social emotional learning piece of me, was that all of the students around me did not win. They were not up for the grand prize, but they still had so much joy in what they were able to accomplish and what they had learned and the friendships they had made and the connections that they had made, that it's really just an incredibly powerful experience when we can see that happen for our students. So I think there is so much joy to be found in STEM learning and in teaching, and I hope that this webinar has helped you to find some places to spark that joy for yourself. And I'll turn it back over to Ginger.
Thank you. Thanks again to our panelists for sharing, and for our participants for using your time today to learn with us. And for those of you that are hanging on a few minutes beyond, there's just been a lot of exciting things to share with you. Within a week, you will receive an email that has a link to the recording of this webinar, and then additional resources that can answer questions you might have. We'd like to thank EducationWeek and PLTW for being hosts for this webinar. If you'd like to find out more information about PLTW, please visit our website at www.pltw.org. I also would say we have many events coming up, including our Sparking Curiosity, a launch conference. Would be a great way to learn about our program, or if you're involved, to grow deeper in that. Also, we have virtual PLTW showcases that are available, so check those out. We'd love for you to attend more events. This concludes the presentation portion of our webinar, but our PLTW team members and our panelists are going to remain on to answer any questions that you have. Remember to add your questions in the Q&A. And again, we thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.